Good evening, everybody. Yes, this is a night episode. This is your host, Kirk Hill Jr., and we are here with an episode of A Moment's Notice. I was asleep, actually, but woke up, got myself together, and was contemplating, do I still want to do this episode today? Because I posted on my Instagram that I would do one today, so I was like, do I want to stick with my word or should I wait until the morning? Because I usually do these earlier in the day. But, I'm up, so I figured I might as well do this. And this is an important episode that I wanted to do tonight because kind of want to move away slightly from myself. Right. And this will be from my point of view, but I want to talk about things outside of my life because I did say from the beginning that I would talk about a variety of topics and subjects, and I've kind of just been sticking with themes that apply to my personal life because they're easy to talk about. It's my life, and as I reflect on where I'm headed in my life, it just comes out. But another thing that's been getting to me recently is what is going on in Minnesota. And when I originally wanted to start this podcast, I was going to start with a lot of political things because it was around the time that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and I wanted to kind of give my thoughts of where I stood on that issue. I don't want to get into that today, but I do know that certain political topics stay on my mind. I try not to get into politics all the time. My cousins and I, we discuss it when we can. I have a couple friends of mine who feel a little differently than I do politically, but it is what it is. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I don't know when it comes to what has been going on recently in relation to ICE does not sit well with me. And it is hard for me to try to see it any other way than the fact that people are being terrorized. American citizens are being terrorized. American citizens are being murdered. Obviously, Renee Good, Keith Porter, and countless others that are just really dealing with the worst kind of people. People who are looking for any excuse to be ruthless and violent and domineering and bully, and it's not right. And these people who are victims of this violence, these families who have to now deal with the loss of their loved ones because of the actions of ICE agents, they deserve justice, plain and simple. And the thing that bothers me the most about it is the spin. It is the lack of accountability, and it is the refusal to admit that there are bad apples among ICE agents. It is the refusal to admit that maybe you've lost a little bit of control over this thing and that it's starting to get out of hand. I mean, the people that are passing these tests, or the people who are being certified as ICE agents and not even passing the open book test, because that is a thing. And, just the fact that they feel they have a right to treat American citizens the way that they do. That is not what the supposed purpose of ICE was to be. Because now you're attacking people who just have the courage to stand up to you, who have the courage to say this is not right, who have the courage to protest their rights, who have the courage to film your actions, to question you on your actions. You feel you are justified in throwing these people into the ground, tear gassing families. You feel you have the right to drag people out of their cars, disabled people out of their cars. You feel you have the right to shoot into the side of a car 3 to 4 times while recording in your hand. That's crazy to me. And you have the nerve to call the woman that you killed a fucking bitch. That's crazy. And for someone to watch that and just be like, yeah, he was right to call her that. That's insane to me. Especially when the driver of the car, Renee Good, was not being violent or aggressive in her actions and her tone. Her partner had more mean things to say than she did, and there are tons of other ways that you could have dealt with that instead of shooting into her car, watching her crash and not rushing to get medical aid to her. That's just wrong. Keith Porter had children. Renee Good had children. And the fact that people like J.D. Vance and Kristi Noem and countless others are trying to spin this on their deaths are the product of left-wing ideology. And to call this woman a domestic terrorist, it is just a severe lack of accountability on their part to admit that this should not have happened. These deaths are unnecessary. The people who've been injured. There was a person who got blinded by an ICE attack. It's unnecessary. And this mentality that is going around, the division in our communities, is saddening. I can't I can't not talk about it. I don't post things on social media all the time. I don't share articles and stuff, mainly because I try to watch a lot of stuff and try to have an informed opinion, and try to absorb all of the information that I find on these things. I don't want to just see one headline and just make a blanket statement, because that doesn't help anything. It doesn't do anything, and it isn't, it isn't fair, because it is just not a enough informed opinion. So I watch a lot of videos on YouTube. I read a lot of articles. I listen to a lot of podcasts. And yes, most of those things that I listen to are left leaning. I mean, I am a Democrat, registered Democrat or whatever. And, I just don't agree with a lot of conservative, MAGA, Trump support, wherever you stand on that scale politically. That's just not where I am. So yeah. And to me, when it comes to this in particular, because there's other conversations to be had about politicians and the state of democracy and all of that. And I plan on having conversations like that with people who are more informed than I am, and people who really study these things and follow it more closely than I do, because I want to learn and grow from all points of view if possible. I truly do. But when it comes to this specific thing, when it comes to what ICE is doing now, I think for me, it isn't about where I stand politically. It's just about morally what I feel is right. And this is going off nothing but what I see with my eyes. Because I could listen to podcasts, I could read articles, but it is really the footage that I see that has made me feel so upset. That's made me stand where I stand on this issue, because all I see is people getting terrorized. And all I see is a murder. Plain and simple. And it, from my point of view, which a lot of people in this country can agree with, that wasn't justified. That was not a justifiable murder. And it's really hard to try to see it any other way than what it was. Certainly not a domestic terrorist, so we can just nip that in the bud. And this is a difficult time that we're living in. And if I am going to try to relate it to my life, I want to be in a community, be a part of a community that treats people better than the way ICE is treating people. I want to be in a community that feels cooperative, so that I can feel that I am safe, that my children are safe, and that they're being treated fairly. And to know that there are people living in constant fear of being basically hunted down, and dragged out of their homes, dragged out of their cars, put in cells, possibly getting killed. It's just not okay. And as citizens of this country, we should not have to live with that kind of fear. simply for the fact that we have the courage to stand up for ourselves, which is our right as American citizens, you know? That should not cost me my life. That should not cost me my freedom. And this needs to be dealt with. Whatever's going on in this country, that part of it has to stop. And I hope that people in Minneapolis stay strong, keep pushing, keep protesting. Like Tim Wall said, record everything, be peaceful. We're not going to give the government any reason to invoke the Insurrection Act. Not going for that. And I know that there are people out there, places out there, politicians out there who actually want to do some good, who actually want to help their communities thrive and be in peace and harmony. And those people need to keep standing up and speaking out and going out and doing the work to show that there's another way, that there's a better way. I think a lot of us worry because politicians just kind of like talk about what's wrong, just like we talk about what's wrong. But we don't see enough politicians just doing what they can in their power to counteract the things that are wrong. Because we know what's wrong. We see it every day. We talk about it amongst ourselves. But what we want to see in these politicians mainly is action. We want to see you do the work because you got there for a reason. If you were elected to whatever position you're in, we put you there. So now you have a job to do. We want to see you do your job. And your job is more than just pleasantries. It's more than just speeches. It's more than just a quick appearance here and there. You got to really be out there fighting and really be out there making an impact. And there are certain ones that I've seen that I feel they're doing that. And I want to believe that there are politicians out there who are on the side of justice and fairness and equality. And just goodwill. I want to believe that that is something that's possible. Because otherwise, what are we doing? Yeah. All right. I just really hope that things change for the better. And at some point, I want to do my part, whatever that is, whatever I can do. Hopefully, even this little bit of me talking could get people in my life, to think about it. And maybe there's something that they might have thought about doing that they haven't done yet. And now, hopefully this will get you to do your part. And I just felt compelled to speak about it because, I really do worry about that kind of world I am raising my children in. And whether or not they'll be judged by the content of their character, and knowing that, MLK, the holiday is coming up, his birthday just passed, and we did an event at my wife's job yesterday celebrating MLK and his life and what he meant to our community, and trying to establish a better sense of community amongst everything that's going on. And the pastor that spoke yesterday mentioned what's going on in Minneapolis because it's real and because it is not aligned with our ideal of what this country should be, of what our communities should look like, about what democracy is, about what decency is. You even want to talk about law and order. That is not law and order. That is just bullying. That is just violence for nothing but a show of power, a show of force. And I can't just watch that and just be like, it is what it is. Because it shouldn't be what it is. I cannot accept that as this is just the reality of this country. There has to be a way to change it for the better. There has to be a way to bring us to the place we really want to be and to start living that way now, to put the pieces in place so that we can get to the type of society that we want to live in. And it starts with having conversations. It starts with figuring out what is needed. It starts with, again, just having the courage to be like, this isn't right, and that we should change. And my heart goes out to all of those who have been affected by ICE everywhere. Anybody who has been negatively impacted by the actions of ICE agents, my heart goes out to all of you. And I hope that each and every one of you receive the justice you deserve. Now, I don't want to do a complete whiplash, but I do want to stick with my theme of one good thing. And one good thing is that I have been rehearsing in a play that will be presented to children in a festival in Brooklyn, the Rhythm and Movements Festival, hosted by Asasaya Foundation. And it is an honor and a privilege to be a part of it, to act again and to be in a role. And I'm playing George Washington Carver because the play is for Black History Month. I'm playing other characters as well, but relearning really about George Washington Carver and trying to get his voice and cadence down has been very fun for me. And I'm excited about when it all comes together. And it's something that means a lot to me because we are putting the show together for children. And it is a way to teach them history in a way that is fun and digestible so that it can stick with them. And I really, that means a lot to me because when I first started acting, my first real play that I was in 8th grade, I still remember the day that this little girl came up to me after the play was over and asked to take a picture of me. And not because I was Kirk, but because I was the character that I played. And that was really, really cool. And it's the reason I wanted to become an actor, because I could keep on doing that, leaving an impact in a way that's meaningful. So that's why I do it, and I am beyond grateful to be a part of this play, The Mad Scientist. If you are able to be a part of this, I will leave information for all of that in the comments somewhere. And just, yeah, another thing quickly before we wrap this up. I have decided that my 10 minutes or less videos will just become a separate entity on its own. I think those are really cool. And as I transition this podcast into a more conversational podcast with different guests and giving everybody their moment to shine, I still like these solo things where I just kind of talk about whatever is on my mind. So I think I'll just do that as a separate thing where it'll be fun to try to challenge myself to only talk about it in 10 minutes or less. So that's going to be its own show. And it's just a way to keep me active in this thing and to kind of grow the network beyond just a moment's notice. And as time goes on, there will be more shows, God willing. Sorry, my facial hair is just, growing and it's starting to get a little itchy. But yeah, I thank you all for listening as always. And I'm very excited. Hopefully my first guest, I have an idea, very good idea of who my first guest will be. I want to try to put that together soon. And as always, we'll be back at a moment's notice. So thank you.